It is great to meet you all virtually. I love this series. This story
Thank you.
is phenomenal. A funny story: when I was a kid, I had a newspaper on my street as well.
Oh, that's great.
So cool. What kind of stuff did you write about?
I would just this is years ago. I'm dating myself, but I would actually handwrite everything, and I would just go interview neighbors. Like I had a tape recorder that I walked around, and I would ask people like I don't know what they were having for dinner that night, sports stuff. I was just I was all over the place. I was not doing investigative reporting, but I was interested in knowing what everybody was doing, and and I would go and handwrite these things. And my parents thought I was weird, and now look at me. I get to interview people like you all.
Not everybody gets lucky enough to have a murder on their street, so.
Well, and that's where I was going with this. I'm going to start with you, Hilde. When you found out that this story was being turned into a TV series, a great one at that, incredible cast, what were your first thoughts? What did you think?
First, I was just very weirded out because, I mean, at the point, like when I knew it was happening, before that, I was kind of, I knew Joy and stuff, and we were meeting, and I was talking about this for a while. So to have it actually happen, it was just a really weird moment. I remember when I found out, I was, I was on the phone with, I think Joy, Dana, and Dara,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I had to leave early because I had a theater or like a play I was acting in to go to. So I was like, guys, that's great, gotta go. But it was very weird.
So, Joy and Dara, I want to ask you both this, and you all can answer respectively. Tell me obviously it's just an incredible, inspiring story of what she has accomplished and going to accomplish. I know there's more to come from Hilde, but tell me the importance of getting this story out. I know what I took from it. I'm curious what's important to you all.
Well, I mean, 4 years. It was almost 4 years ago to the day that I met Hilde. She was only 9, and she was this tiny little human. And the story had broken on April 2nd. It was about 3 weeks later, and she was getting an award at the Tribeca Film Festival. And to hear, and Dara and I were friends through our daughters, who at the time were 4.5 years old. And they were in preschool together. And to hear a little girl say the words, "I want to be taken seriously and I want to fight for the truth," was just like, that's it. That's the show that needs to be made. That is the message that we need to get out there. And I immediately called Dana Fox, who is my very close friend and who I've always wanted to make a show with. And then we called Dara, and together we sort of hatched a plan around how do we make a show that reminds us of the things we grew up on, that is elegant, that is filmmaker driven, that is not a guilty pleasure, but an absolute pleasure for families to enjoy together. And Hilde being our North Star, as this person who was so purely willing to fight for the truth and to fight for her own right to have a voice, was just like, that was the whole reason why there should be a show, is to amplify that message and let more kids and parents know that Hilde existed, and that maybe we could all be a little bit Hilde.
Hilde, what inspired you to go into journalism?
Well, my dad was a reporter when we lived in New York, and I would go with him a lot. Not because he wanted to get me into crime, but he was working a lot. So I would go with him. We'd like spend time together. So I just developed a really natural love for journalism, which I don't think I realized until we moved to Pennsylvania and he'd quit his job. And I was not ready to stop reporting. So I started the Orange Street News. And at first, mine was actually handwritten too. I wrote it down with crayons on cue cards. And I sold it for 10 cents in my living room. And not one person in my family purchased it.
Hilde, I remember in your speech when you said, I used to write it with crayons, but my hands started to hurt.
Well,
They did.
I'm left-handed, so all the print was on my hand when I was writing these things out.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine that.
It hurt, but that's how much I love doing it. And obviously I went into radio and now I do this. I'm going to close with this for each of y'all. What do you hope people take away from this? For me, it's telling the truth, but it's also a message about, you can do anything if you really put your mind and your heart and your strengths into anything, which I love. But am I on the right path with that one? Was that your goal?
I absolutely think that that's the primary message. I also want families to be able to have the hard conversations with each other.
Yep.
I think there's too much in our world that we don't talk about. And it's a lot scarier when it lives in the dark.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so very much. I love this series. Watched it with my mom. She's the one that looked over at me and said, "You wrote a newspaper."
Oh my
Anyway,
God.
y'all stay safe. Serious.
Thank
And
you.
I'll tell my little Liam you said hi. Okay.
Please.
Dave.